Well, it's a circle of life in every generation. Everybody thinks they have all the answers when they're young. This current young generation now, it looks like they're really stepping in it this time. I'm specifically talking about the Louisiana State University women's basketball team, who was MIA during the National Anthem for an Elite Eight game. And now, of course, people are talking about changes need to be made. For more, let's bring in the senior research analyst for the Media Research Center, Bill D'Agostino. Also with us is the chapter member of Turning Point USA for LSU, Mason Batts. Thank you guys for joining us. Mason, Louisiana's governor suggested that student athletes could risk losing their scholarships if they're not present for the national anthem. The players said they weren't aware. They made a mistake. What did you make of it, and what was the reaction on campus?
Well, the situation with the basketball team is not the basketball team's fault. What we have at LSU is we have a very liberal board of supervisors who promulgates the rules that do not allow the players or the coaches to be on the court for the national anthem. And that is what the governor is calling for that needs to be changed.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, Bill, forget about patriotism, right? Kids nowadays are being taught about pronouns instead. All this trans nonsense. But it turns out most kids who believe that they're trans when they're kids actually grow out of their delusion. A new study conducted over the course of 15 years, we're talking about almost 3,000 kids. The overwhelming majority of these children realize when they grow up, they're not trans. So were you surprised by that study?
I wasn't, and I think a lot of people who kind of have the right take on the whole trans issue are aware that, at least among kids, this is predominantly a case of social contagion, right? The issue is that there is so much activism research in the soft sciences now, like the humanities, social sciences, et cetera, that it's basically conducted by these pseudo-scientific grad students who go out to prove a theory ahead of time. Right? They're not trying to gather information or determine the truth. They have basically a thesis that they want to prove by cherry picking data. And that's what so much of the whole trans movement is underpinned by. It's basically junk science. And so when you see these meta studies like this, it's encouraging to see this information come out. But I wonder how much mainstream play something like this really gets just because it contradicts the mainstream narrative.
Right. And Mason, we have less than a minute left. You're in school at this point right now. You have to deal with a lot of, people that contradict your belief system, even teachers, professors. How do you handle it?
Well, I've found the best way to handle it is getting involved with students on campus who are like-minded, but also reaching out to students that aren't. You'll find that on college campuses, especially at LSU, there are a lot more conservatives than what the media or what even, the faculty would lead you to believe. But we have these, like I said, these boards who control everything, who are not conservative, and they want to silence conservatives. And that's why we're working on bills in our state legislature right now that are going to help strengthen our free speech rights and bring more conservatives to the table and offer a free and equal playing field for people of all political beliefs.
And Bill, as a research analyst for the Media Research Center, you see all these algorithms, right? And social media, they play a very important role on how they inform our kids as well. I mean, how can parents combat that? What can be done? Do you just get them off social media altogether?
I think that limiting social media is important, but I think that what Mason was touching into there is also very important. You have to surround yourself with peers who give you, the term would really be social permission. To believe things that maybe go against the mainstream grain. Unfortunately, the mainstream grain these days is incredibly Marxist. And so, I mean, what Mason is doing is incredibly important. You're basically giving peers who might have these kind of thoughts kicking around at the back of their head, but they're not really sure if they're allowed to think these things or certainly voice them. Approaching people like that and giving them permission, making them realize it's okay to have these beliefs, to ask questions about, for example, the trans agenda or the DEI agenda.
All right, we have to leave it right there. I know, it's incredible. Thank you guys, Mason Batts and Bill D'Agostino.